Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talos of Tech, live on Twitch. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're having an excellent day. It's July! Ladies and gentlemen, we've officially made it halfway through 2020. Halfway. We're past halfway now. It's July 2nd. And oh my god. Yes, I'm closing my activity rings with the dance every single time, and also changing my shirt, and also getting a haircut, and moving my desk every single beginning of the stream. Absolutely. Chris Norton, thank you for the 100 bits. Any chance we could get the video of you dancing uploaded to YouTube so that I can watch this peak art performance on loop? You know what would be really funny? I should find the original video file. I don't even know if I have that video file anymore because I recorded that I think it was August or it was like August or September of last year. So it's getting up there in age. It's really quite old. But obviously there's no music on the original file. I just had, I think, either headphones in or my HomePod was playing, so you can hear me like trying to dance and everything. So it'd be kind of funny to just, you know what? That wouldn't go on YouTube. I'd probably just upload that to Twitter. That'd be a better place for it anyway. People would just laugh at it overall. I don't see new IMAX. Why'd you dance? I'm worried now because there was a leak going around. I don't think I'll make a video about this, but that's why we bring it up in the Twitch stream. But there was a leak going around of an unreleased iMac on Geekbench that was being tested, and it had like the updated generation Intel processor in it, and it had some updated GPU, and I was like, oh no, please don't let there be like a spec boosted iMac before the redesigned iMac comes out. I don't want that. Just because it's gonna confuse people. It's gonna be like, oh wait, so is this the only iMac we're getting this year, and then the redesigned iMac coming next year, or is the redesigned iMac a fluke and it's never coming out at all? I don't want that to happen. It would also be bizarre for Apple to drop a new iMac like in the middle of the back to school deal. I think there was a time it was called Mac to School, but now they're calling it Back to School. That's why I keep getting confused with it. But like, buy a Mac and get free AirPods. They do that for like, okay, a little bit of June, a little bit of July, and then they drop an updated iMac. It just feel weird to drop that now, especially just a few weeks after the event. I know some people said Apple's released hardware like a month after an event before, but How do you feel if they can make the iMac touchscreen so it can be better with artists with Apple Pencil support, like they can lower the screen with a special stand that doesn't cost $1,000, so we artists can have a large canvas for drawing, not just the iPad? I like the idea of it. In fact, I think I referenced it a few videos back, and someone made that concept that ended up in today's video's thumbnail. Basically, the Surface Studio running Mac OS. I'm not saying it's impossible. I hope that wasn't the message I got across. I'm not saying it would be bad for Apple to make touchscreen Macs. I just don't think it's worth the trouble for the number of people that would likely pay for it. You know, Microsoft, their Surface line is kind of higher priced, a little bit higher tier. They're kind of pulling an Apple with the like, okay, for the specs you're getting, it's kind of higher priced, but you're paying for the more premium hardware. And the Surface Studio is kind of an extreme example of that. It's a beautiful looking all-in-one. I'd love to mess around with one. If anybody has one that doesn't want it anymore and was just looking to get rid of it, get in contact with me, because I'd love to just have one to play with, but that's about it. I'm not willing to spend money on one, because I doubt I could use it for much, but I just love the idea of a giant desktop all-in-one that can convert into a giant canvas. Not that that wouldn't be cool. I just don't see Apple serving a market that small. It doesn't seem like something that, you know, the Surface Studio, beautiful product, hasn't sold very well. Any type of tiny metric we have on the success of the Surface Studio, it's quite low. As in, they're not selling off the charts, and if they were, Microsoft would be doing something with the product, and they haven't done anything with it in the past few years. They basically did the first one and then the second one, and that was it. So clearly, it's not a huge demographic of people that would be willing to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on an all-in-one that they can draw on, which would be, you know, the primary interest of a device like that is that you'd have a giant canvas. It's just, is the research and manufacturing that Apple would have to go through to make that product worth the small demographic that it would serve? Maybe. Maybe it would, but I don't think, you know, there's so many little demographics I wish Apple would go after, and they don't. So that's my guess. It's JDog 2001. Thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. Appreciate it. Let's see. What do you think of the rumored upcoming iPad Air? I did a video on that. It's called "The Truth About the iPad Air 4." I felt bad after I did that, but the reason I feel bad is because I feel like YouTubers are too clickbaity and overuse the word truth. I try not to use the word truth too much, but if you go around YouTube, you'll find like everybody's using the word truth across it. The truth about it, the truth about. I'm like, okay. But this time, there were so many false leaks going around. I don't know if they're false. They just didn't sound right. But in my opinion, nothing was lining up. The idea that the iPad Air was going to have some type of Touch ID built into the display, and that it was going to have mini LED before the iPad Pro had mini LED. So it felt like there was all this false info going around about the iPad Air 4 that I was like, okay, you know what? I want to do a video just saying, here's the truth. Here's what to expect with the Air 4. But then after I did it, I was like, crap. Now I come across as the clickbaity guy. Oh, well. I'm going to try not to do that as much. But essentially, I think it'll be $500, and I think it's just going to be the 2018 iPad Pro rebranded, dumbed down, no promotion, no stereo speakers. Probably just an A12 chip. They won't give it the A12X. And not a 4K camera or anything like that. Nothing fancy. So I think we'd get a fairly basic rebranding, because that's essentially, a lot of people forget that. The current iPad Air 3 we have right now, all it is a dumbed down version of the 10.5-inch iPad Pro. It's almost the exact same product. Same display. The same accessories work, by the way. A lot of people were surprised by that. I mean, no quad speakers yet. I mean, no stereo, as in when you're using the iPad in landscape, the speakers are just on one side. It's annoying. So I call it stereo. I know some people say it technically has stereo, even though they're on the bottom, but that's what I mean. No quad speakers. I think there's a very niche use for a touchscreen on computers, and don't feel that it's worth the extra money. Yeah, I mean, Microsoft has been playing around with touchscreen machines forever, and honestly, I don't think there's been that much success with it. I still think that there's a huge amount of the PC market that just never touches the display. And if they do touch the display, it's very occasional. It's not that common. And like I said about Apple already having kind of a hybrid operating system, there were already some good comments on that video. Good YouTube comments? Since when? I know, it's weird, but there were some good points brought up in the YouTube comments that said, essentially, a MacBook Air with a touchscreen is just an iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard. What is the point of having both of those products at the same time? So a lot of people were bringing up that. I saw a few developers comment on the video that Snazzy did not bring up that there would be a compatibility checklist Apple would go through, which I was not aware of, because I'm not a hard, I have the developer betas and stuff like that, but I'm not actually an app developer or anything. And there were app developers commenting that there will be a compatibility checklist Apple has to go through, apps have to go through before an iOS or iPad app can go on the Mac. So it's not just instantly every single app ported over. So I imagine if the app requires multi-touch for interaction or something like that, it might not make it over to the Mac. So once I read that, I was like, okay, that makes a bit more sense. And when it comes to the zooming in on things, which is most of what multi-touch is used for, pinch to zoom, you can still do that with MacBook trackpads. It may not be as seamless as a multi-touch interface like the iPad, but you can still, the majority of Macs have trackpads attached to them. iMacs and Mac Pros do not sell as well as MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros, which have multi-touch trackpads. So, first, your monitor is full of dirt, touch uses more power, etc. Big Sur looks like it'd be wonderful with the iPad's cursor behavior. Maybe. I can kind of see why people would want that, but I think it's wishful thinking of people wanting the Mac to become more iPad-like, and this is what this design language is doing. A lot of the design language in Big Sur, I know because I'm looking at it right now, a lot of the design language in Big Sur is very reminiscent of iPadOS, but I think people are running with that a little too far and thinking, oh, so if you're bringing the design language of Control Center over, that means that we're bringing touch over, right? And I'm like, I don't think so. But again, like I've said numerous times, I've been wrong. I've got so many things wrong over the years, and who knows, 5 years from now you might see the video, how Apple changed my mind about touchscreen on the Mac. But that's why I'm kind of tiptoeing around the subject, because there's been a lot of times I'm like, oh, Apple would never do that, and then they do it. So it's not impossible for this to happen. And I also hope people understand that I wouldn't be super mad or angry if Macs got touchscreens. My whole prediction and my whole basis and theory on this video that I posted today was just about I don't think Apple will see that as worth it, and I don't think they will see it as worth their time, and I don't think the use case will be that helpful. Like if my iMac Pro supported touch, I wouldn't, I would never use it. Even if they made a version of the iMac that was like the Surface Studio and you could swivel it down and have a big touch interface, I guess I might use it a little bit for video thumbnails, but I think it's in Apple's best interest to sell iPads and Macs and not just butcher the two. Um, Expos1 donated 200 bits, thank you. Says, looking forward to the iPhone 12. Me too. Can you believe we could see the iPhone 12 in 2 months from now? Just 2 more months, guys. If it comes out in September, it might not. They might postpone the event. You know, the developers conference was later than usual. It was about 3 weeks later than usual. So there's a chance they might delay the iPhone event, but I'm guessing they won't, because they're okay delaying iPhone launches. You know, they'd be okay having the September event and then saying iPhones ship next month, iPhones ship November or October, whenever. I could see them doing that, but maybe they'll delay the event. But still, it should be. We're in the middle of iPhone season in just 2 months. Let's see. The Surface laptop is legit just a MacBook Air running Windows. Yeah. See, Microsoft has made their hardware more like Apple's, so maybe does Apple need to now make hardware more like Microsoft's? I don't know. Let's see. Besides the icons in the design, what's your least favorite thing about Big Sur, or something that should be improved by the final build? I mean, what else is there to talk about other than the icons and design? I can't think of much functional changes they've made other than design language. The battery icon. The battery icon looks stupid. I hope they change that. But I get that's a design thing. Functionality wise, no. I mean, there's very little they've done. I guess Safari has a little background thing now. I don't know. I can't think of much functionality wise. I'm not in love with the new apps design language on the Mac. I'm okay if they just bring over the exact same app icons from the iPad. If they just ported those over, I'd be fine with it. That would look more consistent, in my opinion. You think we have other event before iPhone event? No. iPhone event's the next Apple event for sure. Yeah, battery icons by far the worst. I'm glad people agree with me on that. Imagine a breakout of someone having... No, okay. I'm not gonna... Quicksilver, keep it to tech, please. My goodness. I think that they mentioned that the HomePod will support other streaming services. Do you know anything else for the HomePod? That's the only thing I heard. I heard that you'll be able to have Spotify running on the HomePod now, which... Okay. I don't know that many people that are Spotify users that wanted a HomePod in the first place, but... Yeah. The only icon I think actually needed an update was iMessage. The old blue and white icon made no sense to me, and it wasn't consistent compared to the other Apple products. No, I agree. The app icons on macOS Catalina are dated, but they went too far. They were like, okay, we're going to make them look like the iPad, but now we're going to make them skeuomorphic and a little bit more lifelike, and now it's like, now it doesn't work. They're still not matched up. I don't know why Apple felt like the icons can't look exactly the same, but they wanted them to look more similar for some reason. I feel like Surface Studio is a good product made by the wrong company, and that's why it's not selling well. Maybe. I don't know of that many other companies that are really good at designing all-in-ones. That's the thing. Apple kind of has a monopoly on all-in-one. Most third-party all-in-one PCs aren't very good either. You kind of need a major... I don't know why, but you kind of need a major company like an Apple, a Microsoft, or someone to make a solid premium all-in-one. The only issue I have with the Surface Studio is the I/O and the specs aren't very good, but I think all the money is going towards that display. Making huge touchscreens is not necessarily that cheap. So that would increase the price quite a bit, and that impacted the specifications. I didn't hear about monitor support on iPad. Let's see. Surface Studio needs some updated internals for it to sell well right now. I think even with updated internals, it still wouldn't sell that well. It's not really that common of a use case. The number of people who need all-in-one designs are shrinking. I feel like one of them. I don't really necessarily need them. I just like them. But more and more people are just moving towards two-in-ones and laptops anyway. It's a niche product, exactly. And I think the use cases for adding touch to the Mac would be fairly small. Adding keyboard and trackpads to the iPad enables it to do so much more because it's been built around touch, and there's been years and years of apps that have been building, productivity features around a touch interface. So we had finally kind of ironed out and mastered what a tablet is capable of doing with a touchscreen. So it was only then when Apple felt justified saying, okay, now let's let the iPad start moving into laptop territory. Now we'll give it a keyboard and trackpad now that it has this huge foundation and this huge app library that's built just for touch interface. Now we give it keyboard and mouse. Oh, okay, cool. Now you can start doing this kind of stuff with the iPad. Now you can be more precise. Now you can do this and this. Macs already have the keyboard and mouse, so I'm trying to understand what touch would allow you to do, other than it would be kind of nice sometimes to touch it, I guess. That's... Doesn't Sidecar have limitations with touch, though? I saw a lot of people bringing up Sidecar, but it only works with the Apple Pencil, right? It doesn't work with touch. Or did they change that? I don't know. I've been using Sidecar a lot, but every time I touch the iPad display, it doesn't work. But I guess I'm on Catalina, so... If you're in the market for a MacBook, should you wait until it gets ARM processors? The waiting game is endless. All I've said in my videos about waiting to buy Intel Macs right now is just like, if you can wait, if your current machine is fine and you can get by with it, do try to wait if you can, because it sounds like over the next year or two, Apple's going to be heavily moving over to Apple Silicon, and that's going to vastly outperform and run much better than the Intel Macs right now. But the only situation I would say don't wait is if like you're in such a bad predicament where you need this Mac for work or you need this for school, you need something and your current Mac is falling apart and it's just not going to cut it, it's slowing you down. Like your current Mac or whatever machine you're using is just falling apart on you and it's just not working. Okay, go ahead, pull the trigger. You're still going to get many, many more years of software support. It's not like Apple's going to discontinue it. It's not like Apple's going to cancel all support for your Mac within a year. If you're in dire need of a Mac, okay, go ahead, get one. But if you can wait, do. And I'm in that boat right now. Like, I wanted a new Mac. I was kind of in the market for one. But the iMac Pro, nothing's really that wrong with it. Hardware-wise, it's fine. There's only a few software bugs from Catalina I've experienced that have slowed me down. But overall, I can still get my work done on it. It's honestly fine. So I'm just going to keep using it. I'm just going to hold on to my iMac Pro a little bit longer until hopefully they do an Apple Silicon based iMac. Wow, Chris Norton donated 1,000 bits. Thank you. Apple helps me live a full life with a slight disability. That's awesome. Glad they can help you, Chris. Appreciate the donation. Waiting game is endless, but waiting for ARM over Intel is definitely worth it. If you can, yeah. It's not worth it if your current machine is falling apart and you can't even, I'm not recommending, because the truth is we don't know exactly when all these Apple Silicon-based Macs are launching. If you're in the market for a 13-inch MacBook Pro and you're waiting for an Apple Silicon version of that, okay, maybe waiting isn't that hard because we're rumored to get one of those before the end of this year. But if you're waiting for Apple Silicon-based iMac, or you're waiting for an Apple Silicon-based 16-inch MacBook Pro, and we start telling those people, wait, don't buy the Intel ones, wait for the Apple Silicon ones, we don't know how long we're asking them to wait. It could be summer of next year. Can you last a whole year without a new Mac if your current one's falling apart and it's not able to do what you need for school or work? That's a long time to just tell someone not to buy a new machine if they're in the market for one. So it's not the end of the world if you get an Intel Mac, but again, if your old one's okay and holding up, then please hold on. Hold on to it as long as you can. Replace my 2009 iMac with a new 16-inch MacBook Pro. We're going to wait to replace my husband's 2016 MacBook Pro with the new chip in 2 years. Oh, okay. There you go. Good idea. Apple Sheep defends Big Sur's battery icon. That'd make a good video thumbnail, yeah. I know this would never happen, but if I was in charge of Apple, I'd make all of the consumer-based Macs, such as MacBook Air, Mac Mini, and iMac, have Apple Silicon ARM chips, but I'd make all of the Pro Macs, such as the MacBook Pro, Mac Pro, and iMac Pro, have AMD chips. Yusuf while that might sound reasonable in the short term, I think the reason Apple's switching to Apple Silicon across everything is they believe, and I think we should believe them, that they'll be able to develop chips that far surpass both Intel and AMD. So if you had a solid CPU team and a GPU team that was capable of making hardware that could outperform the rest of the industry, which we have seen with CPUs on iPhones, CPUs on iPads, um, GPU performance on very very entry level products that are high end and very powerful. iPhone SE. Can you find another $400 phone with a chip as strong as the A13 chip? Imagine that same team now working on high end machines like the iMac, the Mac Pro, the iMac Pro. Apple probably believes that they're going to be able to outperform AMD. So why would you keep using AMD if you had a team internally that could outperform that? So that's my guess, is that Apple's probably the last Mac to get Apple Silicon will be something like the Mac Pro. And when that gets Apple branded silicon, it will even outperform the Intel processors that it's shipping with today. Which I know that's saying a lot, but that's how much faith I have in the Apple Silicon team. Drew, I'm able to join your Discord by entering. I'm not going to help with Discord tech support on the stream. I'm sorry. For the people who use Mac for programming, do you think buying a first-gen ARM MacBook with it, or should I get an Intel one now and then upgrade to ARM in a few years once more apps have native ARM support? Sounds like the transition's going to go pretty smoothly because Apple converts the apps that you download in real time, and it seems like a lot of companies are already optimizing their apps and getting ready for the dev kit and everything. So for programming, I don't think it's that bad, and I don't think it's that bad an idea to wait. But the only reason I would say sticking with an Intel Mac might make a bit more sense is if you use Boot Camp for something and you have to use Windows 10 and you have to use it via Boot Camp. You can't use Parallels or anything like that. In that case, okay, maybe buy a nice Intel Mac and hold on to it for a while. But I don't see a need to for programming. Do you think the ARM CPU will be user upgradable when the Mac Pro gets the ARM refresh? Doubt it, to be honest. They might pull a fast one on us, but I'm guessing no. I'm predicting they won't let you. Which will make, yeah, I know, it will make the Mac Pro kind of weird because it's supposed to be all modular and upgradable, but I think the processor might be something that just kind of stays soldered in. Let's see. Apple has updated the MacBook lineup in 2018 and 2019 during the second week of July. Do you think we could see something similar this year for the iMac, seeing as those benchmarks leaked? Then the last iMac redesign in 2009 was done via website refresh. Maybe. I mean, the thing about Geekbench results is they're very easy to fake. There's been many times in the past, I know it's not easy to remember because we just kind of sweep it under the rug, but there's been a lot of times Geekbench results have come out and they've turned out to just be completely made up. You can get them to show up on Geekbench's database just by editing some of the numbers in the Geekbench test. So I'm not saying it's impossible that they'll refresh the iMacs halfway through. It just seems bizarre during the back-to-school deal. They're already selling iMacs currently, telling everyone, hey, buy an iMac and get a free pair of AirPods. At halfway through that deal, be like, oh, by the way, here's a new iMac. Sorry, there was a little bit of lag there. I'm not sure what caused it, but hopefully it stopped. So I hope they don't do that, but Geekbench results are not concrete. It's very easy to fake Geekbench scores. Aren't MacBooks the only modern computer without a touchscreen, and other companies like Microsoft making fun of them in advertisements for years? Yeah, but they still sell pretty well, so Apple's never cared about negative advertising campaigns. I can't think of that many recent Microsoft commercials that made fun of them for not having a touchscreen, but people still buy them. Software matters, not so much a touchscreen. What should I tell my mom to persuade her to get an iMac as her family computer when she says it's too expensive and the family wouldn't be able to transition from Windows even though Boot Camp exists? Maybe maybe it's not worth it. If Macs are moving towards Apple Silicon and you're not going to be able to Boot Camp anyway, if your mom wants to stay on Windows, let her stay on Windows. It's the family computer. If it's too expensive, that's a good reason, especially this time of year, in the climate we're in. Fan sound is all over on the stream. Well, it's hot in here, okay? you want a fan sound or do you want to watch me sweat? If only you could smell me. If you could smell me, you would want the fan on. My goodness. Let's see. When do you think a lower-end Apple Silicon Mac, such as a MacBook Air 12-inch MacBook, will come out similar to this year? Could a 2021 Apple Silicon MacBook Air come out earlier in the year like this year? Not according to Quo. Haven't seen many leaks or analysts suggesting that a MacBook Air with Apple Silicon is coming out by the end of this year. It's not impossible. It would kind of make sense to introduce it on something like a MacBook Air, but Quo is saying 13-inch MacBook Pro is going to come out. That's the first one. Apple also got made fun of for the headphone jack, and look where we are now. Yeah, Apple's gotten made fun of in commercials for years. That's never changed their mind on things. And they've said years and years, for years, over a decade now, they've said the touchscreen on the Mac isn't a good idea. Do you think touch-friendly Macs mean a huge jump in price? If they did, it might go up a little bit, yeah, because touch panels are a bit more expensive, and it would require a redesign of the Mac displays, because with the current unibody and the way they design display lids in MacBooks right now, you couldn't just add a touch layer. You would have to beef it up. You would have to make it stronger so that you could apply pressure to it without, too much wobble or too much warping going on. So, again, this is why they should just make the iPad Pro with Magic Keyboard. Give more apps, give more functionality to that. If anything, let macOS run on the iPad. But that's way easier. They can do that via a software update instead of just having to redesign their whole manufacturing process just so that people can reach out and touch the screen every now and again. Would you be surprised if the first Apple Silicon MacBook supports a touchscreen? Yeah, I would be. I'd be fairly surprised. I'd be like, how did that happen without a single leaker talking about it? There's no leak suggesting touchscreen Macs are coming. All there is predictions based on how macOS looks. That's pretty much all we're basing this off of. It's like, Big Sur looks somewhat touch-friendly. And in today's video, I was like, no, it doesn't. Not really. I mean, it's a couple things look touch-friendly, but not most of it. The only thing that looks touch-friendly, really, is Control Center, in my opinion. Just give the iPad the ARM chip. It has the ARM chip. All the iPads have ARM chip. They're running Big Sur on the A12Z chip right now on the Mac Mini Dev Kit. Via software update, if Apple wanted to, they could just bring Big Sur to the iPad Pro. It's got the keyboard. It's got the trackpad. There you go. Just do that. It's probably just that the hardware is pretty limited because there's only like 4 gigs of RAM on the older iPad Pros. You got 6 gigs on the newer ones, but still. Considering the dev kit has 16 gigs of RAM, I think that says something about FPT. I mean, mini LED is way more important than touchscreen. Ask for that instead. Well, we don't have to ask for that. They're already working on it, so expect that next year. There's supposed to be a lot more mini LED screens. Do you think that Apple will still allow for dedicated AMD graphics after the transition, or do you think it will be all Apple GPUs? I'm pretty confident it's going to be all Apple GPUs. Let's see. The point Snazzy Labs mentioned about the bigger interface, which could possible for touch in the future, is, I think, incorrect because Windows Bar was enlarged to match translucent boxes around the existing buttons like share buttons so that they could look equal in size. Even on the top menu bar, it's not so wide to make it hard for mouse cursor. Yeah, again, it's like macOS has become iPad-like, not exactly touch-friendly in my opinion, especially with resizable windows, which I think is the biggest holdup with touchscreen on the Mac, because with iPads, everything fills up the whole screen. Every app, even when you're multitasking, it fills up every square inch of the display because touch can't be as precise. So Macs, it's the polar opposite. Everything runs in a little window. You can blow it up to full screen, but by default, everything's in a little window, and you can resize it to the shape you want and stuff like that. So with a touchscreen Mac, I don't know how you'd handle that. Have resizing all the windows, different corners, and minimizing and full screen and closing, and I don't know. I used to balk at the idea, but the more I think about it, I'd be more okay with a Mac/iPad hybrid. All you got to do is put macOS on the iPad, Apple. It's just one little software update and you could do it. You don't need to change all your engineering and hardware. NetI202, I don't know how to say your name, but thank you for the tier 1 sub. The average consumer doesn't care about Intel or AMD or ARM as long as it's fast. They are content, correct? Yeah. And if Apple's designing killer GPUs for the iPad Pro, why not design them for the Mac as well? I don't see why not. I wish Apple made some entirely new product that was a mix of Mac and iPad, yet different from both. It's the problem. There's too much overlap already. iPads and MacBooks are already overlapping a lot, and people want them to overlap more. Can we get a MacBook that turns into an iPad? It's just buy an iPad at that point. It's easier to design a keyboard case for your iPad that docks together than it is a MacBook that you can rip in half and just have a keyboard and trackpad that do nothing. They could do a tablet or touch mode for the Mac. Too much. That would take so much re-engineering for an experience that would be just like the iPad Pro. They've already made this. They basically already made what everyone's asking for. Basically, what they have to do is just provide more powerful iPad Pros. That's kind of the holdup now. Only reason we can't maybe the only reason we can't run Big Sur or Mac apps on the iPad is because the RAM is too low, and no, that's it. That's all I can think of. They've got the A12Z chip in the dev kit and in the iPad Pro, only difference being the RAM. So if they just beefed up some iPad, maybe do the iPad Pro Max idea I talked about, 16-inch iPad that comes with a keyboard case attached to it, and you can remove it from the keyboard case if you want to, but that's what I would promote. Hottie, thank you for the Twitch Prime for 4 months. How stable is the Big Sur beta? Once it's working, I haven't had that many bugs, but the first day I had it, it was pretty buggy. It was like not outputting video to any monitor, so I thought the Mac was bricked, but after I entered my password, even though the screen was completely black, the light on the Mac Mini was on, and I just entered my password and hit enter, and then it unlocked and started working. Let's see. My humble opinion: if we can run the same apps on MacBook Air and iPad, we don't need MacBook Air. Well, that's not the situation we're in. The situation we're in is MacBook Air can run a ton of apps that the iPad can't. So if we started running Mac OS off the iPad, then the MacBook Air would be kind of unnecessary at that point. They could have it so it run Mac apps when the iPad has a mouse and keyboard connected to it. I feel like that's way more doable. They wouldn't have to drastically redesign their manufacturing methods and come out with a new design language for the Macs, because adding touchscreens to those things would take a lot of re-engineering. Instead, you can just update the software of the iPad to run Mac stuff. What happened to Talos of Food? It's still up. You could go check it out. I did a video like 2 weeks ago on that channel. A touchscreen iMac makes sense. A touchscreen MacBook not, because there's the iPad. Well, the iMac is even more tricky because reaching up on a desktop is really cumbersome. No one wants to do that. It's more doable on a laptop. But if they did a desktop, they would have to design it like the Surface Studio where you can swivel it down. And I think that would just be so much over-engineering for Apple that they don't want to do it. Do you think there's a Big Sur DVD at Apple they use for... No, there's not a DVD. There's no way for them to plug it in. I couldn't buy a Mac because although Apple will support new releases for years to come, but the new apps from third-party devs will either won't support or will not optimize for Intel chips. You can run your old apps on the ARM Mac. They translate them after you download them. The iMac would need a different hinge for touch support to be worth it. And we all know how Apple prices their monitor stands. Okay? All right? Just a stand that holds the Pro Display XDR is $1,000. Imagine a stand that has to hold an entire computer and swivel down. Oh my God, it would be a $2,000 stand. Ugh. Watch them just expand the touch bar and not include a touch screen. Everyone loses their mind. Don't let Apple design more hinges and stands, please. Oh, God. Please, no. MacBook or iPad/keyboard with trackpad or mouse/Apple Pencil combo for high school students? And if iPad, which one? I think the best deal you could get is a certified refurbished 2018 iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard. And sure, find some pencil if you want. That'd be a solid deal. And you'd have a very capable device that's really powerful. I commented about ARM Mac OS being on an iPad, and a bunch of people said the touchscreen Macs were more likely. I think hardware is objectively more expensive than software. Pro Stand 2. That's what's coming next. Uh, what would be your wish list for a Magic Keyboard too? Like a Magic Keyboard for my Mac or for the iPad? For the Mac, I wouldn't mind a touch bar. I would love a touch bar on a Magic Keyboard that was Bluetooth. Maybe Touch ID even. Um, and before you say, well, they can't do a biometric on a Bluetooth accessory, my Apple Watch already unlocks my Mac and it doesn't have a biometric. So relax. Um, I know it'd be expensive and you probably have to charge it a lot more often. Maybe like $300. Apple already sells $300 keyboards for the iPad. Why not for the Mac? I love the touch bar. I know some people hate it, but I thought it was cool. I much prefer changing display brightness and volume with a slider instead of the buttons just going do, 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 and clicking. Um, and the predictive text when you're typing is cool. When I'm typing something and I'm not exactly sure how it's spelled, the little predictive text thing shows up. If they built that into a little keyboard accessory that I could use with my desktop, I would love that. Even if the battery life wasn't as great, obviously, because it's got a display instead of just keys. So if it's like you got to charge it once a week or charge it every 3 days, I don't mind. I'll plug it in. Sure. The A12Z on the iPad is apparently different than the one on the ARM-based DevKit Mac Mini. Read it somewhere. I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't be shocked. It's still called an A12Z chip. It might perform differently, but I've heard it's fairly similar. They just kind of stuffed the iPad logic board into the Mac Mini unibody. Thing I don't understand is why Apple can't put more memory in the iPad Pro when it's not very expensive. Do you think they would do it on the next gen ones to support the Pro apps like Final Cut now that they're ARM ready? Maybe. I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, the prices for iPads are fairly competitive. That might be why RAM is low, is because with iPad OS, they can make good use of that little amount of RAM. Like, apps don't crash on me, apps don't close on me on the iPad, and it's got 4 gigs of RAM. So maybe they felt like when designing the iPad Pro, given it was just running iPad OS or iOS, they were like, yeah, 4 gigs of RAM, 6 gigs of RAM, that's fine, that'll be good. But maybe now if they're moving more Pro apps to ARM, they'll be like, okay, maybe we should start upping the RAM usage. I know it's not expensive, but the fact that you can buy a $800 tablet that has 120 hertz Face ID, 4K camera, LiDAR, ultra wide 4K camera, A12Z chip, 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, USB-C, quad speaker, like that is a solid machine for $800. So, did they cut corners on the RAM? Maybe. It's very thin. Maybe getting RAM in a device that thin is a bit more difficult. So, yeah. Apple's like, don't benchmark this, don't tear this down, and the internet's like, so, what's inside? It would be nice if the foot of the iMac stand had wireless charging built in. Yeah, it would be nice. I got a little wireless charger next to my iMac right now. But hey, their stands are already expensive enough. All right, let's not go crazy. $1,000 for a stand without wireless charging. Oh my God, can you imagine with wireless charging? I don't think up until now iOS has needed more RAM than what it has offered. Yeah, that could be why. Still feel like 6 gigs of RAM is pretty low if you wanted to do something like Final Cut or Logic. Will the touch bar in the MacBook Pro flop like 3D Touch? Maybe. I mean, it's not something they can turn off. 3D Touch you can kind of turn off via software updates and make it less useful, which is what they did with iOS 13 or things like watchOS 7 with Force Touch. Like, literally, Force Touch doesn't work anymore. Like, if I press hard on the watch face, it doesn't work. So any feature, any function Force Touch had has been completely removed. You can't do that with the touch bar because you need it for the keys and the buttons and the volume and the brightness and all that. But I would not be shocked if Apple feels like they don't get enough positive responses from the touch bar, because I know a lot of people that think it's stupid. I like it. I think it's cool, but I don't. I don't like feel like Apple would put it. I don't think Apple would put it past them to not have it on everything. I mean, they're already not doing it on the MacBook Air, and they're probably seeing quite a bit of success with the MacBook Air because it's lower priced, and they could lower the prices of the MacBooks the MacBook Pros if they didn't have touch bars. So I wouldn't put it past them. Maybe to see like user response to touch bar wasn't very good, so we're just gonna get rid of it. But at the same time, maybe there's enough people liking it, and maybe they feel like they like it enough that they're going to keep it around. But I know people who don't like it. Technically, Final Cut can run on 4 gigs of RAM with Intel HD 3000 graphics, so I'm sure A12 and future models can handle it fine. Maybe. I would say maybe A12X and better. We've heard your feedback, and we think it's time for the Pro Stand to be recognized what it can do. That is why it's time for Stand OS. Now we're talking. Do you think the first ARM Mac that comes out to be a Mac Mini? Nope. 13-inch MacBook Pro. That's what analysts are saying right now, and I believe them. Sounds right. Maybe it's not going to be branded as MacBook Pro. Maybe it'll be branded as MacBook, or maybe it'll be MacBook Air. But Quo is saying it's a MacBook Pro. I don't think it'll be a Mac Mini personally. But eventually the Mac Mini will be rocking Apple Silicon. Yeah, they'll get there. Will Macs get cheaper with Apple Silicon? I doubt so with R&D involved. I think they will. The starting price won't get lower, but the higher tiered Macs will get lower. So basically, the performance for dollar you get will be much better, to the point that you don't have to buy the maxed out model anymore because of the performance you get with the starting model. But I don't expect the starting prices to get much lower. I still think Mac Mini will start at 800. MacBook Pro will start at 1,300. MacBook Air will start at like 1,000. I expect all those prices to stay the same. But when you're designing chips in-house, you save a lot of money because you don't have to pay companies like Intel or AMD to put stuff inside. So, yeah, that's why Apple's able to have a competitive edge with CPUs and GPUs on the iPads and iPhones. If they do get cheaper, I don't think it will be anything significant. Yeah, I don't expect them to. I wouldn't count on it. If they do, great, but I don't think that's the point of Apple Silicon, is to make them cheaper. How do we know Apple Glass is actually coming, especially when it's been rumored for years and nothing has really actually happened? We don't. Wouldn't count on it. I still think, personally, I don't have sources or anything, but I personally think Apple Glass is still in the middle of research and development, and they're still working on it, but I don't think they have a price finalized. I don't think they have a design finalized. I don't think they have features finalized or specs finalized. There may be a lot of targets they want to reach, but I don't think there's a specific date they have in mind yet. I don't think any of the Apple Glass development has been like solidified. I think it's ongoing. They're working on it, yes, but they don't have. Even if they didn't have contracts and we asked them when it's coming, they would be like, we don't really know. It's going to depend on how good we can get our battery life and how cheap we can make the displays that showcase visuals. Through patents and the companies they've worked with and people they've hired, we know they're working on some type of augmented reality. In fact, I feel like Apple has kind of confirmed it when Tim Cook said that they're really interested in AR and the hardware isn't quite there yet. In my opinion, that's kind of Apple confirming they're working on it, but no, that doesn't confirm it's coming out at any particular time or anything. Let's see. I can't wait for all the YouTubers this fall who have trashed Apple for years for thermals discover it was Intel's fault for not making the chips they promised Apple on time, and Apple Silicon is cool just fine. That will be cool. I think it'll be really interesting if they're able to create fanless MacBooks that are really powerful. I think that'll be an interesting turning point. The whole Mac versus PC market is about to get really interesting, I think. It's going to be fun to watch because we've seen the insane performance gains we can get with iPad Pros and iPhones. But we haven't seen that really in the Mac versus PC department. And now it's going to be like, well, if you get a Mac, you're going to get hardware that you can't get elsewhere. And that hardware is going to be outperforming the competitors. So you might have something really cool there. Do you think the silicon chips will get slower over the years, like on the iPhones? They don't get that much slower. The only reason they would get slower is to preserve battery health, and Apple can slow down Intel chips over the years if they want to too. All CPUs perform a little worse over time, so I don't expect them to get any more slower than the current processors we have. So no, I don't think that. Is the Apple Watch SE a news leak somewhere, or is it just your wish list? It's a little of both. I mean, it's mostly a prediction. It's mostly not something any leaker has really solidified or confirmed. There was one tweet from a leaker that claimed it was coming out, but they aren't very reliable. They tweet all kinds of random crap. I wouldn't believe them. I don't believe the Apple Watch SE is happening because I read that one leaker's tweet. I believe it's happening given the current situation the Apple Watch is in. Um, they have to do something with the Series 3 this year. They have to. Because there's no way they're doing WatchOS 7, removing Force Touch, and then they just keep manufacturing the Series 3 the same way, and they don't remove Force Touch from the manufacturing. There's a very intentional reason they remove Force Touch, and I think it's because they're not going to have it on the Series 6 or whatever they update the Series 3 with. And also, the Series 3 is getting old. It's now, like, they cut off the Series 2, and the Series 3 is coming up on 3 years old. Next year, it'll be 4 years old. So they can't keep selling the Series 3 into 2021 because the CPU is too dated. And it's also stupid to keep manufacturing it the same way if WatchOS doesn't even use Force Touch. So it makes the most amount of sense to me for them to do kind of like what the Apple Watch Series 1 was, which was the older design language just with an updated silicon chip and maybe adding some health features. So something like adding fall detection, because currently the Series 3 doesn't have fall detection, improving battery life, which without the Force Touch layer, they could easily increase the size of the battery. So just looking at the situation the Apple Watch is in right now, it makes perfect sense for there to be an SE of sorts that would allow you to have the older design but updated internals so that you can still get software updates for years to come. It'll still boot up fast. It'll still run quickly. And you'll get more health features like fall detection. And it'll still cost $200. I think Apple loves that $200 entry-level price point. They want to keep that. But I don't think they can keep the Series 3 for a fourth year in a row. Let's see. Force Touch going away on the Apple Watch has me worried about the Mac trackpads, and I hate diving board trackpads. I like the Force Touch one. I don't think those are going anywhere. Apple likes the ability for the click to be simulated. They have more control. It's more consistent. I feel like the only reason they remove Force Touch from WatchOS is because they realize that they can replace pretty much any of the Force Touch capabilities with an option or a menu or a little button that shows up. So they realized it wasn't that crucial, and they can expand battery life if they do it that way. They didn't even put a diving board trackpad on the iPad Pro, so don't worry. They're not bringing that to MacBooks. I think Apple's still going to put fans in the Pro Max, but stuff like the MacBook Air and Mac Mini will be fanless. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like depending on what kind of performance they can get out of Apple Silicon, they might be able to pull off fanless Macs on pretty high-powered machines, I think. There's a lot of limitations that the iPad Pro hardware has, and yet the A12Z chip was really fast, and that was 2 years ago. So if they're able to create a larger machine that's more expensive and have more power consumption, then I think they could create something really fast that doesn't need a fan. Talked about no touch bar earlier. Basically, they might remove the touch bar, but there's been no leaks to suggest that, so I haven't heard anything about it. So basically, the Apple Watch SID idea is a Series 4 feature-wise with the Series 3 design. Yes, pretty much. I don't know about the ECG, though. I'm not convinced if they'll bring the ECG to the Series 3, but at least fall detection, because I think the only reason they don't have fall detection on the Series 3 is because of the silicon on the inside. So if you were updating the silicon, you would get that health feature. And fall detection has saved a bunch of people's lives, so bringing that into a cheaper Apple Watch with good battery life that's $200 I think would be great. And yeah, now that WatchOS 7 has basically confirmed to me that we could be getting 2 updated Apple Watches this year. Does the average Apple Watch user even realize Force Touch is a thing? Not in my social circle. I don't interview that many average consumers, but I had to show my wife what Force Touch was on the Apple Watch. I'd be like, you got to press hard. And I've had to show my dad. He's like, how do I change watch faces? And I'm like, just press hard. You got to push, I've had to explain what Force Touch is to so many people that I totally get why they removed it. Do you think HomePod Mini is still on the Apple roadmap? It's somewhere on the roadmap. I can't tell where it's going to be, but it's been leaked, rumored for a long, long time. I mean, there were HomePod Mini rumors like a year ago. Pretty much since the first HomePod came out, people have been asking for a smaller, cheaper HomePod, and it still hasn't happened. So, yeah, I don't know if it's ever coming out, but it sounds like at least there was a prototype of it, because Bloomberg reported on there being like a 2-tweeter version of the HomePod, which would be pretty small and probably pretty cheap. But nothing for the leaks of the HomePod Mini have been very concrete. Nothing's been very for certain. Does the average Apple user realize half the things we use in the tech community exist? Yeah. The average Apple user uses their phone for like Twitter, email, messages, camera, music, Safari, and that's about it. That's the majority. I love how we're all arguing about the charger coming with the iPhone 12, and the average consumer isn't buying the iPhone 12. The people who buy the new iPhone every year are the people who are fairly techy and do have tons of lightning chargers wherever they go. People are like, yeah, but some people don't have a bunch of lightning cables. They're not buying the brand new iPhone 12 on day one, you know. And if there is that small demographic that's like, I'm gonna upgrade and I don't have an old charger, okay, that guy's got to spend an extra $10. It's not the end of the world. Thank God for Apple Silicon Macs being confirmed. I was gonna buy a Windows laptop over a MacBook Air because the specs and thermals on it were horrible for the price. You still might get horrible specs, but yeah, we'll see. If HomePod Mini does come out, would you like the price to be half of the original one or even lesser? Is that a word? Lesser of the original? Uh, Obviously, I think when it comes to a HomePod Mini, the cheaper the better. I think the emphasis on the HomePod Mini should be more about not caring that much about sound quality and just focusing on how cheap you can get it. Because the Google Home Mini, honestly, it doesn't sound that good. It's really, sound quality wise, it's like a notch better than my phone. It's slightly better sound quality than my phone speakers. But it's cheap, and that's what people love about it. Is it's a tech product that you can talk to, which is fun, and people love talking to their little speakers here and there. And the music quality isn't great, but it's enough for people to spend. It's $30 worth because everybody who gets a Nest Home Mini or whatever, they don't care that much about audio quality. People aren't buying those things for the sound. Apple went all out with sound with the HomePod, so if they were to make a smaller one, I think the emphasis should not be on sound quality. It should just be as cheap as possible. So yeah, under $100 would be amazing. I just don't see Apple doing something like that. I imagine them still prioritizing sound quality a bit. So they're like, no, it still sounds pretty good. It's just not as loud, and it'll be like $150. That sounds believable to me. Let's see. I just like having a new cable and certainly new earpods because I'm coming from an iPhone SE Gen 1. Well, you can go buy those, but I'm sick of the counter argument to e-waste becoming a growing problem. Marquez talked about it in his video as well. For one, also keep in mind the leaks were saying a new cable is still included, so it was mainly the charge brick that wouldn't be included. So you'd still get a fresh new cable if that's what you want. But what's his name? Marquez tweeted this article that talks about how much e-waste is generated every single year and where the majority of it comes from. And a huge chunk of e-waste comes straight from people buying new phones every year and not using the included earpods or cable. So if Apple were to do this, it'd be a huge win for the environment. There'd be significantly less e-waste. And people's counter-argument to reducing our carbon footprint and reducing electronic waste is, yeah, but I like having that. So just because you like having a charger with your phone, you're saying everybody, and all, including all the people who would never use those chargers with their phone, they should all get it too. Instead of taking it upon the, well, maybe I'm in the minority and I'll just buy one if I need one, or I'll use my old one. Apple's taking the initiative and saying, we're going to assume you don't need one. And if you do, you can take the extra step. It's not that hard. And we also know that if Apple does this, then the chargers you're buying won't go straight into landfills because you're buying it because you need it. If you're buying a charger with your iPhone, then you're going to use it. You're not going to just throw it out. Whereas if we include a charger and earpods with every single iPhone, there will be a substantial chunk of e-waste contributed, and it just kills me that so many people's response to, Apple trying to help the environment a bit is, yeah, but I want one though. So gimme. But we need one. We don't break our charge bricks, we break our wires, so it's totally fine to remove the bricks. There you go. Okay, if I get the cable, I'm fine because I have lots of bricks. There you go. No reason to fret. The wired earpods can die. I haven't used them since my iPhone 6S. Yeah, I think the earpods are And I also think people misunderstand. Like, they go, well, that doesn't cost Apple anything to make. It probably costs them a couple pennies to make that stuff. Yeah, but to put them in every single iPhone, that stacks up. The individual parts that go into an iPhone are not expensive. The Face ID sensors, they're probably $10-20. The stainless steel is probably $10-20. The most expensive part is the display. But the 5G modems, the little silicon, the lightning connector, there's little details like this. They're very small. They're not that expensive in their own right. But as more and more features are being added, Apple's looking for other ways to cut down costs. And like Marquez brought up, if you have thinner packaging that uses less paper, that can save a substantial amount of money, and it's a win for the environment. Plus, you can fit more on a plane. They're easier to ship. You can fit many, many more devices on a single truck, which means don't have to ship as many. The trucks don't have to drive as much. The planes don't have to fly as much. There's whole kinds of wins for the environment by just not including all this stuff. Right, they're still including a cable. I say get rid of that too. I have 3 brand new unopened lightning cables. Maybe that part of the leak is incorrect and it's literally just going to be the iPhone included, but I'd be fine without a cable. I don't need one. Will the iPhone boxes be a redesign to be thinner? Weirdly excited for that. Yeah, I mean, I saw a leaker claim that, but it wasn't a reliable one. It was one of those random Twitter accounts that tweets like a million things a day. It's like, and you can't really tell if they're legit or not. But I would imagine, yeah, because earpods and charger is basically the whole bottom half of an iPhone box. I mean, if anyone knows stuff about iPhone boxes, it's me. The phone itself is not that much, It's a very thin part, and they put it at the very top of the box, right? It's the very, very top part of the iPhone box. It's like second thing you see after the paperwork when you lift the box off. So, the whole reason the box is as thick as it is because you got this big charge brick and you've got the wound up ear pods and a little plastic or paper encasing. So if you remove that, you could probably shrink this by a good 50%. If all that was in it was a cable, paperwork, and the phone, yeah, you could probably... You know what they'd probably do is instead of lifting the iPhone, but maybe some people won't like this because they kind of enjoy it. Don't people kind of like... opening the iPhone box like this when you kind of lift it off? What they might do, because if the weight is much lower of the box, it might be harder to open it like that, is you'll package your phone more like the phone cases. Have you guys seen, do I have one? I think I have one. 1 second. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a, I don't know who sent this to me. It's pretty old though. This is a iPhone 6s smart battery case box, but basically, you'll slide the iPhone out like this, and then the iPhone will be sitting on the inside, and that's what the new iPhone packaging would look like. And if they do that though, how would I hang it on my wall? Shoot. Never mind. Apple, keep the boxes the same. Screw the environment. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The slip case. That would be great. Apple will probably not include a wireless charger next year, right? No, I doubt it. I honestly, at this point, I don't think Apple will ever include a wireless charger with their phone. Now that we're seeing Apple is probably considering not shipping a charger with the phone, why bother with a wireless charger? Just like they'll never ship AirPods with the phone. There's rumors that they're working on a wireless charger, not AirPower, all right? Keep your pants on, people. AirPower's not coming out. When Apple says something's dead, it's dead. Let me put this back real quick. And the more research we do about these AirPower leaks, the less sense they make. So, sorry, could you all see my underwear? I apologize. It turns out that some of the more recent AirPower images were fake, I guess. I never really got an official confirmation from John Prosser about that, but he tweeted out these pictures that were much more detailed than the original photo, but they kind of left more questions than answers. So it was kind of he was trying to solidify the rumor, but it ended up making people doubt it more and more because what happened was we had the first blurry picture of AirPower, and there was a watch sitting on it. wasn't charging, and it was super pixelated, super blurry. You could barely see it. So it was like, okay, there's a blurry picture of AirPower. Some people ran with that and thought, okay, maybe it's real. But then he tweeted these new photos, and what we realized was that in every single photo of the AirPower charge mat, including the first blurry one, the Apple Watch was in the exact same place. It was always in like this off-centered corner. And what I tweeted in response, because obviously when he tweeted that, people were like, "Ooh, Drew, it's back, it's confirmed. You see the pictures?" And I looked at it and I was like, "Wait a minute. In every third picture, not every third, in every single picture of this AirPower charge mat we've seen, and there were like 3 that John had tweeted, the Apple Watch is in the exact same position as my AirPower knockoff that I got sent like a year ago. I have a little AirPower clone. I think it was called Air Unleashed or something like that, and it just has a little indent where the Apple Watch charges, like the little puck that it sits in. And I'm looking at all these leaked photos, and the Apple Watch is in the exact same spot. And so I tweeted that. I was like, what's interesting about this leak is it looks like the watch can only charge right there, and it won't go anywhere else. And within like 2 to 3 minutes, John immediately replied to that tweet saying, "I just spoke with the source, and we'll get you a picture of it charging on other sides of the charge mat." It was really quick. It was like, "Oh, I just spoke with the source, and we're gonna make sure you can charge it on either side." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. So finally we can clear this up." So I was waiting for that. He asked like, "Which side do you want it on?" And I was like, "Maybe just do a video. If you're talking to him right now, just record a video of it. Pick up, drop. That would be more conclusive evidence in my mind. If you found a video of someone with the AirPower charger and they could drop their watch on it and the animation would activate, and they put it on the left side and the right side and it would turn off and turn on, that would be more conclusive. I'd be like, okay, that looks real, that looks legit. He responded really quickly that first time, and then I said, "How about a video?" And he replied to that within a couple minutes and said, "I'll see what I can do." And then I never heard back. I retweeted that, "I'll see what we can do," a few days ago. I was like, "Any ETA on this?" And there was nothing. He didn't respond. He hasn't replied to that tweet. So when I retweeted that, I got a bunch of people telling me, "Oh, that was confirmed fake," or the person who took those pictures said they were fake. And apparently, they'd been posted in my Discord a few times. So I never really got, this was weeks ago. This happened 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and we still never got a response from that original source that he was talking to. So my guess is it was fake, or perhaps he was being led on by someone he thought was legit, but was actually just giving him fake, AirPod dummy pictures, and he was believing them. Is possible. I don't doubt. For the record, I don't think John was making this stuff up. I just think that he was being fed faulty information and thought it was legit when it really wasn't. That's what I think happened. That's important. That's why we should not take leakers' word as sacred, and we should not just assume everything is correct because a leaker may have gotten some things correct. Doesn't make all things correct. Let's see. It's gone. It's never coming back. It's like an ex-girlfriend. I've moved on. I think I watched iUpdate's video today about not including a charger, and he said that the removal of the charger is kind of the foreshadow for Apple to remove the charge port. And when they removed the headphone jack, they showcased AirPods. And that was how they wanted to handle removing of the headphone jack. It's like, you're spending more money, but you're getting a better product. And he compared that to Apple launching AirPower later with a portless iPhone. So you'll not have a port on your phone anymore, but you'll be able to spend extra money to get a really cool wireless charger. And I just don't see that. I don't see that happening. I get the argument he was trying to make, and I think the logic there is sound, that Apple used to include headphones with the product. Now they're gonna remove the headphone jack and start selling AirPods, and like, here's a up-priced solution. And I just don't see it the same way, I guess, because I don't think wireless charging has made that jump. I don't think wireless charging has made the same jump that AirPods did. AirPods, I feel like, was more objectively better for audio. I mean, especially compared to the headphones that were included with the iPhone. Sound quality was identical. If anything, it was a little bit better. So now it was like, okay, you spend extra money, now you get wireless headphones that work really well with the iPhone. Great. But wireless charging is a little different because you got to keep your phone on the charger, especially with AirPower. Um, it's very hard, as lots of people bring up, it's very hard to use your phone in bed while it's charging if there's no charge port, um, which does make the charging situation a lot more complicated. And I don't think AirPower is as big a deal or is as convenient as something like AirPods, which is very simple and easy to understand, whereas AirPower is like, you can only charge the phone when it's sitting on this mat, but if you pick it up, it's no longer charging. With vertical wireless charging stands, you got a little bit better argument, but again, there's still a lot of people that love charging their phone while using it, like in the living room or sitting down or in bed or something like that. So I don't think that's what AirPower is going to be. I'm still convinced AirPower is dead for good, and Apple might make their own branded wireless charger. I could see that happening. It just won't be called AirPower. It'll be called the Apple wireless charger or something like that. The magic charger. That's what I was going to think. What's another stupid suffix Apple can add to everything? The Pro charger. The magic wireless charging stand or something like that. The wireless charger's not ready yet. Also, it's not portable to carry around like a power bank like the AirPods. Well, there are wireless charge banks that work pretty well. I have one that's kind of cool. It's like a power bank that you can put on a wireless charger and charge, and you can also put it on the back of a phone and it'll charge it. I like that idea, but personally, I know a lot of people right now are like, see, Apple's getting ready to remove the charge port next year. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. People seem to act like 2021 is really far away. It's really not that far away. It's coming up. 2020 is halfway over. So people are saying that within the next 14 months, right? September is iPhone season. Almost feels like the iPhone 12 is practically out at this point. We know like everything about it. So you're saying in the next 14 months, Apple is going to start shipping a phone that doesn't have a port in it. So factory resets, wired charging, fast charging, none of that. It's just going to be wireless only for data, restores. I don't know. I know Apple can be ambitious with things sometimes, but personally, I think the smartphone market is going to have a hard time justifying an upgrade. It's already 2021 is supposed to be an S year, and S years are hard to justify upgrades because everyone's just going to want to buy the iPhone 12, so why bother with the 12S? And if the only change coming the following year is a slightly better CPU and no charge port, that's a deterrent. That's going to prevent people from upgrading, not wanting to upgrade. If there was some big feature, some big additional thing that made it worth upgrading, that would be a different discussion. But right now, there's not much they can do. There's really not a big feature they can showcase that it's like, well, it's worth it because you get this. I haven't heard what that this is yet, so I don't think the portless iPhone's coming next year personally. They're not removing the charger. There are too many inconvenient places where wireless charging just wouldn't work and the port would, like sitting on an airplane. That's a good point. Yeah, the charge port. I think they want to get there. They've wanted to get there for a long time. I just don't think it's going to be next year. I think they're going to wait until they have some type of advancements made in wireless charging technology. They would have to speed up the charge rate of wireless charging, get a lot faster, and they would have to start selling their own wireless chargers that are somewhat affordable, or they would have to start figuring out a way to charge over the air, which is not anywhere close to being done. So have we reached a point where the only Apple Watch upgrades are going to be for just the SoC? Maybe. They might do some display changes in the future. I mean, if Apple seems to be investing a lot into mini LED and micro LED, it's not coming this year, but I feel like that's the only big changes that could come to the Apple Watch in time. But other than that, yeah, not much changes to the watch. It peaked. I made a whole video about that. AirPods actually made using the headphones more convenient because there was no pairing. To me, AirPower just does the same thing as every other wireless charger, except you can put it anywhere. which isn't really a problem with regular ones, but I would pay $250 for the cool sound effects and animations. That's the problem. And the whole reason people wanted AirPower was the animations and the sound effects. It wasn't even that convenient. What if Apple included a version of AirPods but with the same sound quality of the standard wired headphones, with a worse microphone, a shorter stem, no charging case? Wait, what? A button to pause and charge, change the volume instead of the button being in the AirPod itself. And to make it even cheaper, they could even connect them both with a wire. Oh, wait, that's just wired to your butt. Oh, okay. You were joking, Yusuf. You had me going there for a second. No. There was a leak claiming they were going to make some kind of cheap version of AirPods to ship with the iPhone, but I think that's a terrible idea. The sound quality of the included earbuds is already average, same as AirPods. So to just make them intentionally worse just seems like a waste of investment and a waste of time. So I think Apple is much more likely to just not include any accessories with the iPhone. They want you to buy AirPods, and shipping any kind of wireless headphone with the iPhone will prevent you from buying AirPods. They should make the animation available to all wireless chargers already. Yeah, I know, that'd be great. I agree. Do you think the Apple Silicon Macs will still have a dedicated GPU option? The ARM GPUs are okay, but haven't scaled up as well as their CPUs. Yeah, but Apple hasn't made any for the Mac yet. If Apple's in charge of the ARM's GPUs, I think it might be a very different story. Do you think some people will boycott the iPhone 12 because of the charger? I saw some people saying that on YouTube and Twitter. I'm not buying it if it doesn't come with a charger, which I found hilarious. It's like a $10 accessory is going to prevent you from buying the entire product. The people saying that, we're not going to buy it anyway. That's the way I see it. If a $10 charger not coming with the phone is preventing you from buying it, you weren't in the market for that phone anyway. You weren't interested in any of the features. There was no one I saw that was really excited for the squared off redesign, the new OLED displays, the larger sizes, the updated CPU. No one was interested in all that and then found out, oh wait, a charger's not included? Never mind, I'm out. The only people who were saying, I'm out, I'm boycotting the iPhone 12 are people that didn't care about iPhones anyway and weren't interested in the iPhone 12. It was just generic Apple haters. They're trying to milk every last cent. You can care about the environment and money, people. It's possible. It's very possible. That's what I always get frustrated with when people are like, well, look, guys, Apple's a business, and all they care about is money. It's like, what do you mean when you say all Apple cares about? Apple is not a person. When we say Apple just cares about money or Apple just wants to do this, and Apple is a business. It's not a single entity we're talking about. A business is a giant group of people working together. Not all businesses, but for this particular example, huge number of people, and I think Apple has taken a lot of action that shows they care about the environment. They've invested a lot into solar. They care a lot about recyclability and the materials that go into their iPhones. They bring it up at their events. They talk about the trade-in program, recycling old parts, tearing down stuff and melting down the parts to go into older iPhones, a refurbished program. They've made a lot of steps that are wins for the environment. They've donated to various environmental causes and that kind of thing. But yes, profit and money come before that, because if you don't have money and you don't secure profit, you can't make those investments. You can't donate to support causes that help the environment. You can't buy solar panels. You can't buy renewable energy. You can't buy infrastructure that helps you recycle old parts or tear down old devices and reuse the machinery for more manufacturing. You can't do that unless you have money. So yes, money comes first, but that doesn't mean they don't care about the environment. You can care about both. And yes, any business, because they're not a person, a business is a series of people working together, in order to do the things they want to do, they have to have money. That's just how a business works.
I'm sorry.
Hush, Siri. So you can care about both. That's all my point is. Let's see. Apple just cares about money. That's literally what a business is supposed to do, make money. Yeah, you can't make a business that doesn't care about money. It doesn't. Then it won't work out. Would AMD GPUs even work with Apple Silicon? I don't think so. They might. Do you think the smart battery case was a way for Apple to kill iPhone batteries faster? I don't think that was the intention. It might have been unintentionally what happened, but with optimized battery charging, you shouldn't have to worry about that with the battery case. No, exactly, because the smart battery case, when your phone was charged up all the way, it started drawing power directly from the case, and not the internal iPhone battery. That was what was so smart about it. So no. That was the genius of the smart battery case, is that they designed the software in a way that it could pull power just from the case and not from the iPhone battery. What if Apple just had the iPhone and the iPhone only in the box, no paperwork, no stickers? I think there's some legal things that require them to include the paperwork or the stickers, but I wouldn't mind if there's no paperwork. Oh, shoot. You know what? I'm going too long. I just realized. I got to get going, folks. We got some more errands to run today. I've got some special projects, especially for the EV channel coming up. So stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching. No, I didn't buy a Tesla. I hope that didn't come. I didn't buy anything. Okay? Anyway, thank you all for watching. Have an excellent rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.